Hello dear YouTube, it is 1 o'clock in the morning where I am. My name is Emily, you can call me Bean, and this is my first ever YouTube video. I don't know how it's gonna go. This channel will be about mental health, mainly psychosis, schizophrenia, and schizoaffective disorder. I think that there is a rather big gap on YouTube surrounding Psychosis. There are a few people that I watch, but often when I type in questions or I type in subjects, I can't find anything, or I find Dr. Phil exposing a schizophrenic child as like this very sick person and kind of taking advantage of mentally ill people. I see a lot of schizophrenia simulators. I see a lot of horror movie trailers, and these are certain stigmas that I kind of don't like about schizophrenia, myself being having schizoaffective disorder. So I would like to educate people on psychosis, talk about it, show you my perspective, and maybe open some conversations with people who feel similarly. I will put trigger warnings before topics that I might consider to be triggering, like abuse or self-harm, and if those topics are discussed deeply, there will be a bit of a disclaimer at the beginning. Some other topics that I will be discussing that interest me and pertain to me are eating disorders of a lot of different kinds. We'll also talk about, not in like specific personal detail, trauma and the concept of the inner child, and talking about ways to heal the inner child, and talk about how mental illness can sometimes make you feel small, make you feel like you are still that child. And like I said, I don't know if I said actually, I'm 23, almost 24, but when I was a teenager, I lived in a psychiatric hospital for 3, almost 4 years, and it affected my entire life. It changed everything. And I want to talk about the negative aspects of living in a hospital and the positive, because there are some positive ones. But it's definitely something that a lot of people go through, and there's not a huge amount of content about that. So I looked up mental health tags on Google, and I found one on a blog called My Brain's Not Broken. So I'm going to be answering the questions that were asked on that. My gosh, is this lighting awful? Tell me if it's awful. I'm trying, okay? So I'm going to be answering those questions, and we'll see where that goes. Just have my laptop here with the questions. So the questions are, what are my issues related to mental health? Well, first of all, I am recovered from anorexia, and I currently have a binge eating disorder that is talked about in therapy but hasn't specifically been diagnosed, because I don't think it's super necessary in that case. In my case, I have been diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder multiple times by multiple different people. Before that, I had childhood psychosis not otherwise specified. Oh, and for schizoaffective disorder, I have the bipolar type. So that means that I have episodes of psychosis, mania, and depression. And I have been depressed pretty much my entire life. And I've been diagnosed with CPTSD. There are few circumstances, different traumas, some coming from the hospital, some coming from my childhood, some coming from just a few years ago, that have led to this, and I think that's about it. The next question is, what meds am I on and what therapy do I take? I live in Canada, so healthcare is a lot more accessible. I see a therapist in a public hospital for free. I know not everyone is that fortunate. In Canada, most people still pay to see a therapist, unless it's like an emergency, which in my case it was. I showed up for the first time in the hospital in an ambulance, and that's what introduced me to psychiatric care. So the question about medication, I kind of feel weird about answering that question because medication is such like like a varying thing. Like, it's different for every person. What works for me might not work for you, even if we have the same diagnosis. You know what I mean? And so I've tried so many different medications. The ones I'm on now are Epival, Latuda, Zyprexa, Ativan, I believe that's it. Yeah, but I've tried like so many medications. Abilify, also Abilify. I've also done CBT and DBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy and dialectical behavioral therapy. I see the benefits of both, though I've done both of those in groups, and despite the therapy being helpful, therapy in a group setting has never been helpful for me. But I do, in my local city, go to a neurodivergent, I guess it's like a club, and we just socialize, we eat snacks and talk, and it's not super like structured. There's no medical professionals there, it's just a bunch of neurodivergent kids just chilling, and that has definitely helped me a lot because I definitely have a hard time socializing, and I'm super awkward, in case you can't tell. The next question is, how long have I had these problems? I started restricting my food and self-harming in grade 4 when I was around 9, and only started getting treatment when I was 14. I think I've been hallucinating my entire life. I used to have very vivid imaginary friends when I was a kid. Some of them I still have, and I didn't really know I was hallucinating. I kind of just thought I saw ghosts, but yeah, my whole life, as far back as I can remember, but it only became a problem when the hallucinations started to become aggressive or trauma related, because I think, and this was when I was 14, 15, first starting to get hospitalized. And I think that the thing about psychosis that not many people really know about, even people with psychosis themselves, is that it's very trauma-based. At least for me it is. Everything that I see and hear and even feel, it's somehow related to specific traumas, and there's a reason for it. The next question, oh, this is a sweet question, is what makes me feel calm. She's over there. My cat. My cat also really like comfort toys, like this guy. I collect all kinds of toys, vintage toys, more modern stuff, dolls, especially robots and animatronics. I also really like kids movies and horror movies, and any combination of the two, like Pan's Labyrinth or Coraline, like creepy kid stuff. But I really like horror movies that are not mental health related and not serial killer related. I like horror movies. The more impossible, the more further from anything realistic, the better. And I love scaring myself. And I also just love Disney movies. My favorite is probably Finding Nemo. That's such a comforting movie. Oh, Sesame Street. I forgot to mention Sesame Street. I kind of have like a little bit of a Muppet obsession, especially Big Bird, because it's like I guess a joke that he's schizophrenic because he's the only one who could see Snuffleupagus. Anyway, no one wants to hear me rant about Sesame Street or Big Bird. If you can watch the Big Bird documentary with Carl Spinney, do it. It's worth it. Even adults like it. How do I handle a crisis? If it's a really, really, really bad crisis, someone else will handle it. Because I can't always talk when I'm in a psychotic episode. I can't always rationalize, and hasn't happened in like a year, but often, like my parents will call the police and shit like that. Crap. I'm not gonna swear. And crap like that. Ignore the light. But how do I personally handle a crisis? Well, right now I am intuitive enough and articulate enough in my journey, my mental health journey, that I can bring myself to a doctor or to an emergency room or to a psych ward, and I am able to advocate for myself unless they dope me up, which is a reality. And if it's a minor crisis, I can call a friend or find some way of comforting myself until it's over, basically. Advice to others. I know that getting diagnosed is an extremely long and difficult process, and it's extremely inaccessible, especially in countries that don't have universal health care, which to me, I'm very passionate about that. I think it's an absolute necessity. So I understand if you can't get diagnosed because you can't afford a doctor or treatment. So my advice, my advice is knowing that not everyone can do this, is to get a diagnosis, because it really truly does help. It can open so many doors to getting financial assistance, getting help in school, even just getting someone to say, oh, I understand you're having a rough day, and I'm not gonna, I don't know, I can empathize. And you can find communities, you can, even just knowing yourself that this is what I have and this is why I'm like this, it can be really comforting. For me it was. Before I was diagnosed, when I was a kid, they didn't want to diagnose me with schizoaffective because they thought it was too much of a label, and they thought it was too heavy to diagnose me with early childhood onset schizophrenia, even though I basically had the same symptoms I have now. And when I got that diagnosis, I think I was 20 or 21, and it was a weight lifted off my shoulders for sure. So my advice would be to do your best to get professionally diagnosed, and do your best to find a community of people who can accept you, who understand you, and who can support you through a crisis if you need that person. And the last question here says, what makes me smile? And I feel like this is kind of like what makes me feel calm, makes me smile. My cat makes me smile. My friends make me smile. My girlfriend, if she's watching this, she sure makes me smile. And this guy makes me smile. The last question. Mental health in 5 words. Distracting. Distracting, that's for sure. Creative. Affectionate. Overpowering. And nostalgic. Nostalgic, I didn't think of that. That's pretty true. So thank you for watching this video, if you stayed the whole way through. I know I'm very, very awkward, and I know this lighting is atrocious. It's 1 o'clock in the morning, and I don't have any professional lighting, and I don't have a professional camera. This is my phone. If you have any kind, constructive advice, I would appreciate it. Or if you just want to say hi, or if you just want to tell me your story, I'm super, super open to making friends. This is basically why I made this YouTube account. I want to talk about stuff that people don't like talking about, or people don't know a lot about. If you have schizophrenia, psychosis, schizoaffective disorder, you're not alone. And even if you can't find content, there is some, and there's only going to be more. And the more time goes by, the more people will be accepting. Thank you, I'm Bean, and I'm going to leave my Instagram below, and feel free to comment and like and subscribe. I will try to make this a regular thing.